The morning sun cast a golden glow over the historic city of Stirling as whispers of excitement rippled through the cobblestone streets. Word had spread like wildfire that Prince William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, would be making an unexpected visit to this Scottish stronghold. Local residents abandoned their morning routines, shopkeepers left their counters unattended, and children pressed their faces against school windows, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal couple. Margaret Thompson, a 73-year-old grandmother who had lived in Stirling her entire life, clutched her walking stick tightly as she made her way to the castle grounds. She remembered the last time royalty had visited their city, decades ago when she was just a young woman. The memory was fuzzy, but the excitement she felt then was nothing compared to the electric atmosphere that now filled the air. The city council had been working frantically since dawn. Street cleaners swept every corner twice, flower arrangements were positioned strategically along the main route, and security personnel conducted final checks on barriers that would keep the growing crowd at a safe distance. Lord Provost Christine Simpson stood nervously outside the city chambers, adjusting her ceremonial robes for the 5th time in 10 minutes. This was the biggest day of her tenure, and she was determined that everything would be perfect. Young Emma MacLeod, a university student studying Scottish history, had camped outside since 5 in the morning with her best friend Sarah. They had brought folding chairs, thermoses filled with hot tea, and a small Scottish flag that Emma's grandmother had given her years ago. Emma had written her thesis on the royal family's connection to Scotland, and seeing William and Kate in person would be the perfect culmination of her academic journey. The local primary school had declared an impromptu half-day holiday, much to the delight of hundreds of children who now lined the streets with their parents. Little Jamie Robertson, aged 7, sat perched on his father's shoulders, wearing a tiny kilt that his mother had hurriedly pressed that morning. Jamie had been practicing his wave for weeks after learning that princes and princesses always waved back to children. Business owner David Mackenzie quickly erected a small platform outside his tea shop, hoping to get the perfect photograph that he could frame and hang in his establishment. He had run the shop for 25 years and had seen many famous faces pass through Stirling, but royalty was a completely different matter. His wife Helen bustled about, preparing special royal-themed cupcakes that she planned to offer to any official who might be hungry. The atmosphere grew increasingly electric as black vehicles began positioning themselves discreetly around the city center. Police officers in formal uniforms took their positions, their radios crackling with constant updates. Detective Inspector Robert Burns, a local man with an ironic name that never failed to amuse visitors, coordinated security from a temporary command post set up in the old town hall. As the clock approached 11, a hush fell over the assembled crowd. Mobile phones were raised high above heads, cameras were adjusted and readjusted, and children were lifted onto shoulders for better views. The anticipation was almost tangible, like electricity in the air before a thunderstorm. Mrs. Flora Campbell, the elderly librarian who had spent 40 years documenting Stirling's history, stood quietly in her best dress, holding a small bouquet of Scottish bluebells that she had picked from her garden at sunrise. She had met several royals throughout her lifetime, but there was something special about William and Kate that made this visit feel different, more personal somehow. The local pipe band, led by Pipe Major Alexander Stewart, had assembled in the square, their instruments gleaming in the morning sunlight. They had been practicing for weeks, perfecting traditional Scottish melodies that would welcome the royal couple in proper Highland fashion. Alexander's fingers moved nervously over his bagpipes as he watched the crowd continue to grow. University professor Dr. James Morrison stood with his teenage daughter Lucy, explaining the historical significance of royal visits to Stirling. Lucy pretended to listen while secretly hoping to get a selfie that would make all her friends jealous. She had chosen her outfit carefully, a modern dress in Scottish tartan that her mother had bought especially for the occasion. The crowd had swelled to over 2,000 people, far more than anyone had anticipated. Ice cream vendors wheeled their carts through the masses, selling treats to excited children whose parents were too nervous to leave their spots. Hot dog stands appeared as if by magic, and someone had even set up a face painting booth where children could get the Union Jack or Scottish flag painted on their cheeks. Local journalist Michael Stewart adjusted his camera lens for the 100th time, knowing that today's photographs would grace the front page of tomorrow's newspaper. He had covered many events in his 15-year career, but nothing quite like this. The energy of the crowd was infectious, and even his usually cynical reporter's heart was beating a little faster with anticipation. As church bells began to chime 11 o'clock, a collective intake of breath swept through the crowd. In the distance, the distinctive sound of motorcycle engines could be heard, growing steadily louder. Police motorcycles appeared first, their riders in pristine uniforms followed by sleek black vehicles with tinted windows that reflected the ancient stones of Stirling Castle. The moment everyone had been waiting for was finally about to begin, and not a single person in that crowd would ever forget what they were about to witness. The gleaming convoy moved with practiced precision through Stirling's historic streets, each vehicle perfectly spaced and moving at exactly the right speed. As the motorcade approached the main square, the crowd's excitement reached fever pitch. Children strained to see over the heads of adults, elderly residents leaned heavily on walking sticks for a better view, and teenagers frantically adjusted their phone cameras to capture the perfect shot. The first of the royal vehicles, a magnificent black Range Rover with subtle royal insignia, slowed to a ceremonial pace as it entered the square. Through the specially treated windows, observers could make out elegant silhouettes, and suddenly a collective gasp arose from the crowd as a familiar figure became visible. There, waving gracefully from the passenger seat, was Catherine, Princess of Wales, her radiant smile visible even through the glass. 7-year-old Jamie Robertson, still perched on his father's shoulders, began waving his small Scottish flag with such enthusiasm that he nearly toppled over. His father Robert steadied him with one hand while fumbling for his phone with the other, desperate to capture this once-in-a-lifetime moment. Jamie's excitement was infectious, and soon dozens of other children were waving flags, flowers, and even hastily grabbed napkins in greeting. The vehicle came to a smooth stop directly in front of the temporary red carpet that had been rolled out just hours before. Palace security officers, their movements coordinated like a well-rehearsed dance, quickly positioned themselves around the car. The crowd fell into an expectant silence so complete that the only sounds were the gentle purr of the idling engine and the distant cry of seagulls circling overhead. Detective Inspector Burns spoke quietly into his radio, giving the all-clear signal that had been planned for weeks. Every security detail had been rehearsed countless times, but the actual moment still sent adrenaline coursing through his veins. The safety and comfort of the royal couple was his responsibility, and he was acutely aware that thousands of eyes were watching every movement. The driver's door opened first, and a tall, distinguished gentleman in a dark suit emerged, scanning the crowd with professional eyes before moving to the passenger door. This was the moment the crowd had been waiting for. As the door swung open, a hush fell over the square so profound that Margaret Thompson could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Catherine stepped out first, and the crowd's response was immediate and overwhelming. Applause erupted from every direction, mixed with cheers, whistles, and the excited squeals of children. She wore an elegant coat in deep forest green, a color that seemed to pay homage to the Scottish landscape, paired with a matching hat that framed her face perfectly. Her smile was warm and genuine as she paused for a moment, taking in the sight of the massive crowd that had gathered to welcome her. University student Emma MacLeod felt tears spring to her eyes unexpectedly. After years of studying the royal family from an academic perspective, seeing Catherine in person was surprisingly emotional. The princess appeared smaller in person than Emma had imagined, more human somehow, but no less regal. Emma's friend Sarah grabbed her arm, both of them too excited to speak coherently. Prince William emerged from the other side of the vehicle, straightening his navy blue suit jacket as he too paused to acknowledge the crowd. His presence commanded immediate attention, and the cheering grew even louder as people recognized the future king. He raised his hand in greeting, his smile broad and authentic, clearly moved by the enthusiasm of the Stirling residents who had come out to welcome him. Pipe Major Alexander Stewart, sensing the perfect moment, raised his bagpipes and began to play "Scotland the Brave," the haunting melody rising above the crowd noise. One by one, the other members of the pipe band joined in, creating a stirring musical welcome that seemed to make the ancient stones of the castle itself vibrate with pride. The sound was magnificent, echoing off the surrounding buildings and hills, creating an atmosphere that was both deeply Scottish and utterly magical. William and Catherine moved forward together, their steps perfectly synchronized as they had been trained to do. They approached the waiting Lord Provost Christine Simpson, who had been practicing her curtsy for days but still felt her knees trembling as the royal couple drew near. The formal introductions were brief but warm, with both William and Catherine expressing their delight at being in Stirling and their appreciation for the incredible welcome they had received. Local business owner David Mackenzie leaned forward on his improvised platform, his camera clicking rapidly as he captured every angle of the royal arrival. His wife Helen stood beside him, clutching her tray of specially made cupcakes, hoping against hope that she might have the opportunity to offer them to the royal couple. She had spent hours decorating them with tiny Scottish flags and royal crowns made from icing. The couple began their walkabout, moving toward the crowd barriers where hundreds of eager faces awaited them. Catherine approached Margaret Thompson first, the elderly grandmother who had been waiting since dawn. Margaret felt her hands shake as the princess stopped directly in front of her, but Catherine's warm smile immediately put her at ease. They spoke for several moments about Margaret's memories of Stirling and her long life in the city, with Catherine listening intently to every word. Meanwhile, William had spotted young Jamie Robertson still perched on his father's shoulders, waving his flag with undiminished enthusiasm. The prince made his way over to the boy, reaching up to shake his small hand. Jamie's face lit up with pure joy, and he immediately began telling William about his school and his pet dog, completely unaware that he was chatting with a future king, as if he were just another friendly adult. James Morrison and his daughter Lucy watched in amazement as the royal couple worked the crowd with practiced ease. Lucy had finally gotten her coveted selfie opportunity when Catherine paused to admire her tartan dress, complimenting the choice and asking where she had found such a beautiful pattern. Lucy would treasure that moment for the rest of her life, the memory of a real princess telling her she looked lovely. The walkabout continued for nearly 30 minutes, far longer than originally scheduled, but neither William nor Catherine showed any signs of wanting to cut it short. They seemed genuinely energized by the crowd's enthusiasm, stopping to speak with elderly residents, pose for photographs with families, and accept dozens of bouquets and small gifts from admiring well-wishers. Flora Campbell, the librarian with her carefully picked bluebells, finally had her moment when Catherine approached her section of the barrier. She presented the flowers with a trembling hand, explaining that they had grown wild in the shadow of the castle for generations. Catherine accepted them graciously, inhaling their delicate fragrance and commenting on their beauty and the thoughtfulness of the gift. The atmosphere throughout the square remained electric, with every interaction between the royals and the crowd members seeming to generate fresh waves of excitement. Mobile phones captured thousands of photographs and videos, ensuring that this magical morning would be preserved in digital memory forever. Social media posts were already beginning to flood the internet, spreading news of the incredible reception William and Catherine had received in Stirling. As the walkabout portion of their visit drew to a close, both William and Catherine took one final moment to wave to the entire crowd, their faces showing genuine appreciation for the warmth and enthusiasm they had encountered. The cheering reached a crescendo as they prepared to move on to the next part of their Scottish adventure, leaving behind a crowd of people whose day and perhaps their lives had been forever changed by this magical encounter with royalty. Following their incredible walkabout in the main square, William and Catherine were escorted toward the historic Stirling Castle, their destination for a private tour and ceremonial proceedings. The ancient fortress, perched majestically on its rocky outcrop, had witnessed countless royal visits throughout its 800-year history, but none quite like this. The couple's motorcade wound its way up the steep cobblestone approach road, with hundreds of onlookers lining every available vantage point along the route. Castle Administrator Helen Morrison had been preparing for this visit for months, coordinating with palace officials, security teams, and local authorities to ensure everything would be perfect. She stood nervously at the main entrance, checking her watch for the dozenth time as she reviewed the carefully planned itinerary in her mind. Every room had been cleaned and polished until it gleamed, every artifact had been positioned for optimal viewing, and every member of the castle staff had been briefed on proper protocol. The crowd that had gathered in the square was reluctant to disperse, with many families deciding to relocate to the castle grounds in hopes of catching another glimpse of the royal couple. Young Jamie Robertson's father, Robert, hoisted his son onto his shoulders once again as they joined the migration up the hill. Jamie's earlier encounter with Prince William had left him absolutely glowing with excitement, and he chattered nonstop about how the prince had asked about his dog and remembered to say goodbye. Local historian Dr. Margaret Campbell, who served as one of the castle's volunteer guides, had been selected to provide commentary during the royal tour. She had spent sleepless nights preparing, reviewing every detail of the castle's fascinating history. and practicing her presentation until she could recite it perfectly. This was her chance to share her passion for Scottish heritage with two of the most famous people in the world, and she was determined to make the most of it. As William and Catherine's vehicle approached the castle's main entrance, a ceremonial guard of honor assembled on either side of the ancient gateway. Members of the local territorial army regiment, resplendent in their dress uniforms, stood at perfect attention, their polished boots gleaming in the morning sunlight. The sight was both impressive and deeply moving, connecting the modern royal visit with centuries of Scottish military tradition. The couple emerged from their vehicle to another round of enthusiastic applause from the crowd that had gathered outside the castle walls. Catherine had changed into a different outfit during a brief stop at the nearby hotel, now wearing a sophisticated blue dress that complemented the castle's ancient stonework perfectly. William appeared relaxed and happy, clearly enjoying the Scottish atmosphere and the warm reception they had received throughout the morning. Castle keeper Thomas MacLeod, a descendant of the famous clan, stepped forward to officially welcome the royal visitors. His deep voice carried clearly across the courtyard as he delivered a brief but stirring speech about the castle's role in Scottish history and its honor in hosting the prince. Thomas had worked at the castle for over 30 years and had welcomed many distinguished visitors, but none had generated quite this level of excitement among staff and volunteers. Inside the castle's great hall, a small but select group of local dignitaries and community leaders had been invited to meet the royal couple. Among them was retired school headmaster Andrew Stewart, who had spent 40 years educating Stirling's children and was being recognized for his outstanding service to the community. His wife Mary stood beside him, wearing her grandmother's pearl necklace and trying to remember all the etiquette tips she had hastily researched online the night before. Also present was Dr. Sarah McNeill, a young scientist from the University of Stirling whose groundbreaking research into sustainable agriculture had caught the attention of palace officials. She had been invited to discuss her work with the Prince of Wales, who had long been an advocate for environmental causes. Sarah clutched a folder containing summaries of her research, hoping she would have the opportunity to make a meaningful contribution to the conversation about Scotland's agricultural future. The formal presentations began in the castle's magnificent tapestry room, where priceless artifacts told the story of Scotland's royal heritage. Dr. Farty Campbell launched into her carefully prepared presentation, describing how the castle had been home to Scottish kings and queens for centuries, witnessing coronations, conspiracies, and countless moments that had shaped the nation's destiny. William and Catherine listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that demonstrated their genuine interest in Scottish history and culture. Catherine was particularly fascinated by the story of Mary Queen of Scots, who had been crowned in the castle's royal chapel as an infant. She spent several minutes examining a delicate piece of jewelry that had reportedly belonged to the tragic queen, asking detailed questions about the craftsmanship and the historical significance of the piece. Her obvious interest delighted the castle staff, who were accustomed to visitors rushing through the displays without taking time to truly appreciate their significance. William, meanwhile, was drawn to the military exhibits, studying the ancient weapons and armor with the keen interest of someone who had served in the armed forces himself. He engaged in a lengthy discussion with Thomas MacLeod about the castle's strategic importance during various conflicts throughout Scottish history, demonstrating an impressive knowledge of military tactics and fortification design. Outside the castle walls, the crowd had grown larger rather than smaller, with people continuing to arrive from surrounding towns and villages. Food vendors had set up impromptu stalls, turning the informal gathering into something resembling a festival. Children played games on the grassy areas while their parents kept watchful eyes on the castle entrance, hoping for another glimpse of William and Catherine when they emerged. Emma MacLeod and her friend Sarah had managed to find spots with an excellent view of the castle's main entrance. Emma was frantically taking notes on everything she was witnessing, knowing that this experience would provide invaluable material for her master's thesis. She had already decided to focus her research on the modern royal family's relationship with Scotland, and today's events were providing her with first-hand observations that no amount of library research could match. The royal couple's tour continued through the castle's private apartments, where they were shown rooms that had been carefully restored to reflect their appearance during different periods of Scottish royal history. Catherine was particularly moved by the nursery that had been created to show how royal children had lived centuries ago, commenting on the simple but beautiful wooden toys and the intimate family portraits that lined the walls. In the castle's chapel, William and Catherine paused for a moment of quiet reflection. The ancient stone walls seemed to absorb sound, creating an atmosphere of profound peace and spirituality. They were joined by Reverend David Mackenzie, the local minister who regularly conducted services in the chapel, who shared stories about the generations of worshippers who had found solace and strength within these sacred walls. The technical aspects of the visit were handled flawlessly by the palace's advance team, who had worked closely with local officials to ensure every detail was perfect. Security was discreet but thorough, allowing the royal couple to move freely while ensuring their safety at all times. The coordination between various agencies was a testament to the professionalism and dedication of everyone involved. As the castle tour reached its conclusion, William and Catherine were presented with a specially commissioned piece of art created by local artist Jennifer Campbell. The beautiful watercolor depicted Stirling Castle against a dramatic Scottish sky, with subtle references to the royal visit incorporated into the composition. Catherine examined the painting carefully, praising the artist's skill and expressing her hope that it would serve as a lasting reminder of their wonderful day in Stirling. The atmosphere throughout the castle visit remained warm and personal, with both William and Catherine clearly enjoying the opportunity to learn about Scottish history and culture in such an intimate setting. Their genuine interest and enthusiasm had impressed everyone they met, from the distinguished historians to the volunteer guides who had devoted their time to sharing their knowledge and passion for this magnificent castle. After their enchanting tour of Stirling Castle, William and Catherine prepared for the next phase of their visit, a community engagement session at the newly renovated Stirling Community Center. The building, which had been transformed from a derelict warehouse into a thriving hub of local activity, represented exactly the kind of grassroots initiative that the royal couple had made a priority to support throughout their public service. The community center buzzed with nervous excitement as local volunteers made final preparations for the royal arrival. Sandra Mitchell, the center's director, had been working tirelessly for weeks to coordinate displays showcasing the various programs and services offered to Stirling residents. Tables were arranged with care, displaying photographs and testimonials from community members whose lives had been transformed by the center's programs. Among the community members selected to meet William and Catherine was 78-year-old war veteran George Henderson, who had found new purpose in life through the center's intergenerational programs. George, wearing his military medals with pride, sat in his wheelchair near the entrance, practicing what he planned to say to the royal couple about his experiences during national service and how the community center had helped him overcome isolation in his later years. 23-year-old single mother Lisa Campbell stood nervously near the childcare display, holding her 4-year-old daughter Emma's hand tightly. Lisa had been selected to represent the center's family support services, which had provided her with childcare assistance and job training that enabled her to complete her nursing degree. She had practiced her story dozens of times, but now that the moment was approaching, her nerves were getting the better of her. The center's youth program was represented by 16-year-old Marcus Thompson, a talented young musician who had discovered his passion for music production through the center's technology programs. Marcus had prepared a short demonstration of the recording equipment that had been purchased with grant funding, hoping to show William and Catherine how modern technology was being used to engage young people in creative pursuits. Local entrepreneur Patricia McLeod had set up a small display showcasing products created by participants in the center's business incubation program. Patricia herself had started her artisanal soap company in the center's workshop spaces and now employed 6 local residents while supplying products to shops throughout Scotland. Her success story represented the kind of economic empowerment that the center hoped to foster throughout the community. As William and Catherine's convoy approached the community center, the crowd that had followed them from the castle arranged itself along the sidewalks, maintaining the enthusiastic but respectful atmosphere that had characterized the entire visit. The royal couple emerged from their vehicle to another wave of cheers and applause, both appearing energized and genuinely excited about the opportunity to see grassroots community work in action. Sandra Mitchell greeted the royal visitors at the entrance, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach as she explained the center's mission and the impact it had achieved in just 3 years of operation. William immediately put her at ease with his warm demeanor and genuine questions about the challenges of running such a comprehensive community program. Catherine nodded approvingly as Sandra described the center's holistic approach to addressing multiple community needs under one roof. The first stop was the senior services area, where George Henderson waited with barely contained excitement. As William approached, George struggled to stand from his wheelchair, but the prince quickly gestured for him to remain seated and pulled up a chair beside him. The conversation that followed was deeply moving, with George sharing his memories of military service and his struggles with loneliness after his wife's death 5 years earlier. Catherine, meanwhile, had been drawn to the children's area, where several toddlers were engaged in supervised play activities. She knelt down to their level, immediately connecting with the young ones in the natural way that had endeared her to parents throughout the United Kingdom. 4-year-old Emma Campbell, initially shy, soon warmed to the princess and began showing her the artwork she had created that morning in anticipation of the royal visit. Lisa Campbell watched in amazement as Catherine spoke with her daughter, asking about her favorite colors and complimenting her artistic abilities. When the princess learned that Lisa was completing her nursing training, she spent several minutes discussing the challenges and rewards of healthcare work, sharing her own experiences visiting hospitals and medical facilities in her official capacity. The conversation revealed Catherine's deep understanding of the healthcare system and her genuine appreciation for the dedication required of medical professionals. Lisa found herself forgetting her nerves entirely as she realized she was speaking with someone who truly understood and valued the work she was training to do. Marcus Thompson had set up his musical demonstration in the center's technology room, and William showed immediate interest in the state-of-the-art recording equipment that had been installed. Marcus explained how he had learned to use the software and hardware, demonstrating some of his original compositions while discussing his dreams of pursuing a career in music production. William listened intently to the young man's music, offering encouragement and asking thoughtful questions about the creative process. The prince's genuine interest in Marcus's work was evident as he asked about the technical aspects of digital music production and the opportunities available for young people interested in pursuing creative careers. Marcus felt his confidence growing as he realized that his passion was being taken seriously by someone who could potentially help advocate for similar programs in other communities. Patricia MacLeod's business display attracted Catherine's attention, and the princess spent considerable time examining the beautifully crafted soaps and learning about the sustainable production methods Patricia had developed. The conversation touched on environmental responsibility, local sourcing, and the importance of supporting small businesses that contribute to community economic development. Catherine's questions revealed her sophisticated understanding of social enterprise and the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs. Patricia found herself discussing not just her products, but her journey from unemployment to business ownership, and how the community center's support had been crucial during the difficult early stages of her venture. Throughout the center visit, both William and Catherine demonstrated their ability to connect genuinely with people from all walks of life. They moved easily between conversations with children, seniors, students, and business owners, adapting their communication style to each situation while maintaining the warmth and authenticity that had characterized their entire Stirling visit. The royal couple was also introduced to several volunteers who kept the center running, including retired teacher Margaret Ross, who coordinated the literacy programs, and university student James Morrison, who helped with technology training for seniors. These conversations highlighted the importance of volunteer engagement and the way the center had become a true community partnership. As their time at the community center drew to a close, William and Catherine were presented with a photo album documenting the center's transformation from empty warehouse to thriving community hub. The album included before and after photographs, testimonials from program participants, and statistics showing the measurable impact the center had achieved in addressing local needs. Both William and Catherine spent time studying the album, commenting on the remarkable transformation and the clear evidence of positive community impact. Their questions revealed their understanding of the complexities involved in community development and their appreciation for the long-term commitment required to create lasting change. The visit concluded with a group photograph including all the community members who had participated in the day's presentations. The relaxed, happy atmosphere was evident in everyone's faces as they gathered around William and Catherine, creating a lasting memory of a truly special day. that had brought together royalty and regular citizens in a celebration of community spirit and shared values. As the afternoon sun began to cast longer shadows across Stirling's historic streets, William and Catherine prepared for the final phase of their remarkable visit to the Scottish city. The royal couple had one last engagement before their departure, a ceremony at the local primary school, where they would officially open a new playground and learning garden that had been funded through a combination of royal charitable grants and community fundraising efforts. Stirling Primary School had been buzzing with excitement for weeks in anticipation of this visit. Head teacher Mrs. Jennifer Mackenzie had worked closely with her staff and parent volunteers to prepare a presentation that would showcase not just the new facilities, but the school's commitment to outdoor learning and environmental education. The children had been practicing songs and preparing artwork for weeks, their excitement building to almost unbearable levels as the big day finally arrived. 8-year-old Sophie Anderson clutched her carefully prepared bouquet of flowers picked from her grandmother's garden, her small hands trembling with anticipation as she stood with the group of children selected to greet the royal visitors. Sophie had been chosen to present the flowers to Princess Catherine, and she had practiced her curtsy and her speech countless times in front of her bedroom mirror. Her parents, David and Helen Anderson, watched from the crowd of families gathered in the school playground, their faces glowing with pride. The new playground equipment gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, having been installed just weeks before the royal visit. Colorful climbing frames, innovative sensory play areas, and traditional Scottish-themed elements created an inviting space that reflected both modern play philosophy and respect for local heritage. The learning garden, with its raised beds already showing the first signs of spring growth, represented the school's commitment to teaching children about sustainability and where their food comes from. 10-year-old Callum MacLeod, the school's head boy, had been selected to give a tour of the new facilities and explain how the children were already using the spaces for both recreation and learning. Callum had spent hours preparing his presentation, working with his teacher to create note cards that would help him remember all the important points about the playground's educational features and the garden's role in the curriculum. As William and Catherine's convoy approached the school, the excitement reached fever pitch. Hundreds of children lined the temporary barriers that had been erected around the playground, their colorful school uniforms creating a rainbow of anticipation. Parents and teachers stood behind them, many holding phones and cameras to capture this historic moment when royalty came to their neighborhood school. The royal couple emerged from their vehicle to the most enthusiastic reception of the entire day. The sound of children's voices raised in excitement created a joyful cacophony that seemed to energize both William and Catherine immediately. They waved enthusiastically to the assembled crowd, their faces showing genuine delight at the warm welcome they received from Scotland's youngest citizens. Mrs. Mackenzie stepped forward to offer the official greeting, her voice steady despite her racing heart as she welcomed the Prince and Princess of Wales to Stirling Primary School. William immediately put her at ease with his friendly manner, commenting on the beautiful school grounds and expressing his appreciation for the invitation to see the new facilities. Catherine, meanwhile, had already begun waving to the children, her natural affinity for young people evident in every gesture. Sophie Anderson's moment finally arrived, as she stepped forward to present her bouquet to Princess Catherine. Despite her nervousness, Sophie executed a perfect curtsy and delivered her speech clearly, telling the princess about the flowers and how excited all the children were to meet her. Catherine accepted the flowers graciously, complimenting Sophie on her beautiful dress and her lovely manner, before asking about her favorite subjects in school. The conversation that followed revealed Catherine's natural ability to connect with children, as she listened intently to Sophie's enthusiastic descriptions of art class and reading time. Other children nearby began chiming in with their own favorite activities, and soon the princess was surrounded by a small group of eager young voices all trying to share their school experiences with her. William, meanwhile, had been drawn to a group of older children who were demonstrating some of the playground equipment. Callum MacLeod began his carefully prepared tour explaining how the climbing structures were designed to develop physical coordination, while the sensory areas helped children with different learning needs feel included in playground activities. William listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that demonstrated his understanding of child development and inclusive education principles. The tour continued to the learning garden, where teacher Miss Sarah Robertson explained how the raised beds were being used to teach everything from basic mathematics through measuring and counting activities to science lessons about plant growth and weather patterns. Several children had brought vegetables and flowers they had grown at home to show the royal visitors, their faces beaming with pride as they displayed their gardening achievements. Catherine knelt down in the garden area, genuinely interested in the children's planting projects, and asking detailed questions about what they had learned through their gardening experiences. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and soon children were volunteering information about composting, water conservation, and the life cycle of butterflies they had observed in their outdoor classroom. The ceremony to officially open the new facilities was brief but meaningful. William and Catherine each planted a small tree that would grow with the school community over the years to come, symbolizing the lasting impact of education and the importance of nurturing young minds. The children sang a traditional Scottish song they had learned especially for the occasion, their sweet voices carrying across the playground and bringing smiles to every adult face in the crowd. As the formal proceedings concluded, William and Catherine surprised everyone by requesting additional time to mingle with the children and families. They moved freely through the playground, stopping to try some of the equipment themselves and engaging in conversations with parents about their children's experiences at the school and their hopes for their educational future. The royal couple's genuine interest in early childhood education was evident throughout their extended visit. They discussed with teachers the challenges and opportunities of outdoor learning, the importance of play in child development, and the school's efforts to create an inclusive environment where every child could thrive regardless of their individual needs or circumstances. Local media representatives captured every moment of the school visit, knowing that these images of William and Catherine interacting with children would be treasured by families and shared widely across social media platforms. The natural, unguarded moments between the royal couple and the young students created some of the most heartwarming photographs of the entire Stirling visit. As the time came for William and Catherine to depart, the children gathered for a final group photograph that would hang in the school's main corridor for generations to come. The joy and excitement on every young face told the story of a day that none of them would ever forget, when a prince and princess came to their school and treated them like the important, valued individuals they truly were. The departure from Stirling was as carefully orchestrated as the arrival had been, but the atmosphere remained warm and celebratory rather than formal. As the royal convoy prepared to leave, thousands of residents lined the streets once more, waving flags and banners calling out thanks and good wishes for the couple who had brought such joy and excitement to their historic city. Margaret Thompson, the elderly grandmother who had been among the first to greet Catherine during the morning walkabout, stood once again at the roadside, tears of happiness streaming down her face as she waved goodbye. The day had exceeded every expectation she had held, providing her with memories that would warm her heart for years to come. As the convoy disappeared into the distance, the people of Stirling began to disperse, already sharing stories and comparing photographs from their extraordinary day. Children chattered excitedly about their encounters with real royalty, while adults reflected on the genuine warmth and accessibility that William and Catherine had displayed throughout their visit. The legacy of their time in Stirling would extend far beyond the immediate excitement of the day itself. The community center would continue its vital work with renewed energy and recognition. The school's new facilities would provide educational opportunities for generations of children, and the castle would add another golden chapter to its long history of royal visits. Most importantly, the people of Stirling had experienced something magical. A reminder that in an increasingly complex world, simple human connections, genuine interest in others, and shared community values still had the power to bring people together and create moments of pure joy that would be treasured forever.